You walk up to the counter at your local coffee shop. You order a drip coffee. The barista turns the iPad around, and suddenly you're staring at 3 glowing options. 20%, 25%, 30%. The barista is standing 2 feet away. There's a line of people behind you. That's $5 on a $4 coffee. That moment of panic you just felt? That wasn't an accident. It was designed. Today, we're exposing the tipping trap. We're going to break down how a 19th century labor scam became the foundation of modern service work, reveal who actually profits when you hit that 25% button, and show you the psychological tricks those iPad screens use to turn your guilt into their revenue. To understand why modern tipping feels so broken, we have to go back to the 1860s. Imagine it is right after the Civil War. A businessman named George Pullman is running luxury sleeper trains across America. He has a problem. He needs thousands of workers to carry bags, serve drinks, and attend to wealthy passengers, but he does not want to pay them. So Pullman has an idea. He hires thousands of newly freed African-American men to work as porters, and he makes them an offer. He will pay them almost nothing, a tiny fraction of a normal wage, but they can keep 100% of whatever tips the rich passengers give them. It sounds like opportunity until you realize what it actually is. For the first time in American history, a massive corporation decided they were not responsible for paying their workers. The customer was responsible. People pushed back. They argued that tipping was un-American, that it created a servile class, and that Pullman was simply being cheap and shifting his business costs onto the public. But Pullman won, and his model spread. By 1938, the government made it official. They passed the Fair Labor Standards Act. This law created the federal minimum wage, but buried inside was a special carve-out for tipped employees. It said that if a worker makes enough in tips, the employer does not have to pay them the full minimum wage. Employers can pay a lower base rate and let tips make up the difference. That lower rate was set at $2.13 per hour. And here is the kicker. That number has not changed since 1991. For over 30 years, the tipped minimum wage has been frozen, while rent, food, and gas have all skyrocketed. So when you leave a tip at a sit-down restaurant, that first $5 or $6 you are paying is not a bonus for the server. It is filling the hole the restaurant owner legally left in their paycheck. If you do not tip, the owner has to cover it. If you do tip, the owner saves money. For almost a century, this was the deal. You went to a restaurant. A waiter served you for an hour. You tipped them. It was not perfect, but we all understood the rules. But then something changed, and that change did not come from restaurant owners. It came from tech companies. Now you might be thinking, what is wrong with digital payments? They are convenient, they are fast. Here's the problem. Here's how the modern tipping economy actually works. When you see that white square terminal on the counter, it is usually made by a company like Square, Toast, or Clover. These systems are great for small businesses. They make it easy to accept credit cards and track sales. But there is a hidden detail in how these companies make money that explains everything. Payment processors charge a fee on every transaction, usually around 2.5 to 3%. And here is the key. That fee applies to the total transaction amount, tax included, tip included. Think about the incentives here. If you buy a sandwich for $10 and do not tip, the payment company takes their cut from $10. But if the screen convinces you to add a $5 tip, now the total is $15, and the payment company takes their cut from $15. They literally make more money when you feel guilty enough to tip. So, over the past 5 years, they have designed these screens to be very, very good at making you feel guilty. The first trick is called anchoring. When the screen flips around, the options do not start at 10% or 15%. They start at 20% or 22%. Sometimes the middle option is 25%. By making 20% the lowest number, Your brain instantly registers that as the minimum. Even if you wanted to leave $1, which used to be totally normal for a quick counter transaction, you now have to search for a tiny button that says custom amount. Clicking that feels like extra work. It feels embarrassing. So most people just take the path of least resistance. They click 20% and move on. The second trick is the spotlight effect. Have you noticed how bright these screens are? How big the buttons are? That is intentional. There's a psychological concept that says humans behave differently when they know they're being watched. These screens maximize that feeling. The barista is standing right there. There is a line of people behind you. The screen is massive. It feels like a spotlight is on you, waiting to see if you are generous or cheap. In that split second, your brain gets a spike of anxiety. You do not want to look bad. You do not want to hold up the line. So you pay the extra $2 just to make the awkwardness stop. It is not really a tip for good service. It is an anxiety tax you pay to escape social judgment. Because this system works so well, businesses have started adding tip screens everywhere. We're now seeing them in places where there are no service workers at all. Self-checkout kiosks at airports and stadiums now ask for a tip. Think about that. You grabbed the bottle of water, you scanned it, you bagged it yourself. You did all the work. So, if you leave a 20% tip, where does that money go? In many cases, it's not going to a specific employee. It is going into a pooled fund that the business controls. Or worse, it just goes straight to the company's bottom line, and the payment processor still takes their 3% cut off the top. It's brilliant for them, but for workers and customers, it's creating something called tipping fatigue. But here is where it gets even twisted. There is another reason your local coffee shop or bakery relies on this system. And it is not because the owners are greedy. It is because they are trapped in a weird economic game with us. Imagine you own a burger place. To stay in business, you need to charge enough to cover rent, ingredients, and wages. But everything has gotten more expensive. Inflation is squeezing you. So you have two choices. Choice A, raise the price of your burger to $18. Pay your staff $25 an hour. No tipping required. But here's the problem. When a customer walks by and sees $18 on the menu, they freak out. They say that is too expensive and go somewhere else. Choice B, keep the burger at $14. It looks affordable, but to make the numbers work, you pay your staff a lower hourly wage. They rely on tips to survive. When the customer pays, they spend $14 for the burger plus a $4 tip. Total, $18. Same final price. But psychologically, we prefer choice B. We like seeing the lower sticker price, even though we end up paying the same amount. This creates a trap where business owners are terrified to eliminate tipping. If they raise prices and drop tips, they look like the most expensive place in town. So everyone sticks with the tipping model. It keeps the real price hidden until the very last second of the transaction. It is price illusion. And because it works, it is spreading to industries that never had tipping before. I have seen online clothing stores ask for tips at checkout. That is not gratuity. That is wage subsidization. The company is essentially asking you to pay their warehouse workers so they do not have to. When everything becomes a tip, nothing feels like a reward anymore. The word loses all meaning. We stop thinking about service quality. We just stare at percentages and feel manipulated. So, what do we do about this? We don't want to stiff workers who rely on tips to survive, but we're also exhausted by machines guilt-tripping us at every transaction. Here's what you can do. Number 1, separate service from counters. If you go to a sit-down restaurant and a waiter takes care of you for an hour, that's the old system. That server is relying on your tip to make rent. In that case, tipping 18 to 20% is still the right thing to do. But counters are different. If you're standing up and the interaction takes 30 seconds, the same rules don't apply. It's okay to hit custom. It's okay to leave $1. And honestly, it's okay to select no tip if all they did was hand you a pre-packaged muffin. You're not being cheap. You're refusing to pay a surcharge on a basic transaction. Number 2, use cash when you want to tip at counters. I know nobody carries cash anymore, but if you drop $1 in a physical tip jar, 2 things happen. First, there is no processing fee. The tech company does not skim anything. Second, you bypass the entire awkward screen interaction. You just drop the money and walk away. It is cleaner, it is direct, and it actually helps the worker more. Number 3, support service included businesses. Some restaurants are breaking the cycle. They are moving to a no tipping model. You will see a note on the menu that reads, "Service included." We pay a living wage. When you look at their prices, they are going to seem higher. The burger might be $19. Your instinct will say that is expensive. But remind yourself this is honest pricing. There is no hidden fee waiting at the end. If we support these businesses, more owners will have the courage to make the switch. The tipping screen isn't about gratitude anymore. It's about extraction. Payment processors profit from your guilt. Businesses hide labor costs behind psychological tricks. Workers are stuck in the middle hoping you'll click the big button. But now you see how it works. You know the anchoring trick. You know the spotlight effect. You know who's skimming fees, and you know the difference between real service and algorithmic manipulation. The next time that iPad spins around, take a breath. Don't let the screen panic you. Look at what actually happened. Decide what feels fair, not what the machine wants you to feel.